Right, so welcome to the latest You podcast. I am delighted to have a guest. I'm not going to pronounce your surname. I've forgotten already. So Alannah, welcome to the show. Please give yourself an introduction and tell everyone how to pronounce the surname.
Thank you. So I am Alannah Juchniewicz, and I am an endo warrior, which we'll talk about a bit later.
Sounds scary to me, an endo warrior.
And yeah, I work in the emergency services. I like cats.
Like cats.
Yeah.
You're either a cat or a dog person, I think, right?
Yeah.
Generally speaking. So I love cats as well, but I'm allergic to them. So
No.
so we have a little wee Jack Russell at home, and he's an absolute nightmare. But my wife is a cat person, so she berates me all the time about why are you so allergic? Why are you so allergic? So we'll get there. I'm sure we'll get a cat at some stage. So you love cats?
Yep. I've got 3.
Got 3?
Yeah.
Any children?
Yes. Yeah, I've got 2 stepchildren and 1 of my own. They're all grown up, teenagers, and one's an adult. I'm quite a boring person, actually.
I don't think there is a thing. I think that depends on how other people perceive it, right?
Yeah.
But I've always said this: if you're happy in life, you're happy. Right?
Yeah.
Who cares what you do, what you don't do, right? If you're happy, right?
Yeah.
Would you say generally you're a content person?
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Content, laid back.
That's the way it
Go
should
with
be.
flow.
So you understood about, if you look at the population of the UK as a whole, and I'm being very generic here, right? So roughly 3 out of 4 can generally manage the ups and downs of life. Mm-hmm. And I think we probably speak more to those people around prevention, coping mechanisms, self-awareness, that sort of stuff. The 1 in 4 that need additional help to be able to cope with those ups and downs, and there might be something kind of soft like coffee and cake with a social group, or running and exercising, or the soft sort of walking in nature, that sort of stuff, to the more extreme interventions like counselling and charities that exist out there. So the reason for inviting you in is we recognise there's a really strong link between our physical health and our mental health, and you can't separate the two. People like to try and separate the two, but they're intrinsically linked, right? And you play a big part in are about to play a big part in raising awareness on a particular condition. Do you want to talk about the condition and what that means? Because when I did some research, I was staggered and a little bit embarrassed by what I didn't know. Yeah,
Okay. I think that's quite common as well.
Is it? Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about endometriosis. I was diagnosed with this about 4 years ago now. So it's a chronic inflammatory disease.
Okay.
And it affects women. It's when tissue similar to that of the womb lining, so it's found elsewhere in the body. So normally a woman would have a period and shed that as blood, but the tissue that's found elsewhere with endometriosis, because it's so similar, it bleeds every month with your cycle but has nowhere to go.
Oh, wow.
So it grows.
Yeah.
It's now a whole body disease. Before they thought it was just, your sort of abdominal organs, pelvic organs and such like. But it has been found elsewhere in the body. There's been cases where it's been found in people's brain, eyes.
God, that's
elsewhere,
scary.
lungs and things. So it's not very common, thankfully. But when I was diagnosed, it took about 9 years for the diagnosis. Going back and forward from the doctor, being told I had IBS, take painkillers, and it took me fainting at my work one day to be taken seriously. So 1 in 10 women they think has this.
1 in 10, and I think the stats were something like in Scotland 250,000-ish.
Thereabouts, yeah.
So was that? I mean, that sounds. If it was me getting a diagnosis 9 years,
yeah,
that would make me feeling all sorts of emotions, right? Frustration, probably a lot of anger, actually.
Yeah.
And maybe determination to be heard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, talk to us about that, because that doesn't seem right. I mean, it just doesn't seem right.
It's not right. I think because it's a female condition, and you know, I think it's maybe, as a lot of things with female health gets overlooked, it's a bit of a taboo subject for people to discuss their periods.
Right,
but
okay,
that's changing now.
It definitely is changing.
Yeah. And
is that helping, do you think?
oh, definitely.
Do you think there's misogyny as well?
To an extent, I think.
Sexism, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's, you know, a women's problem.
Making a big deal of it, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you know, everybody, you know, females have periods, get on with it.
Yeah.
That sort
You're
of
just
thing.
having a painful one type thing, right?
Yeah. The thing with endometriosis, though, is that it's more than a painful period. It's excruciating pain. For some people, it affects everybody differently.
Okay.
Some people don't feel any pain with it. Some people probably don't even know they've got it. But find out later because they can't conceive. It causes fertility problems.
So talk to us about all of those kind of symptoms, and again, it can vary depending on the individual, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But talk to us about some of those symptoms, how they manifest themselves.
The pain symptom, I can only sort of go on my symptoms because I've experienced it.
Yep.
So my main symptom is pain.
Yep.
In my lower back, down my legs, every day, varying degrees of pain. But I'm aware of it every single day. I get nerve pains in my legs, which I take strong painkillers for every single night, because otherwise I'm up through the night in pain. It impacts my daily life, so there's some days where I can't go about my daily business because it's too sore.
Yeah.
I get what's known as endo belly.
Okay.
Which is quite bad bloating.
Yeah.
So I can sometimes look like I'm about 6 months pregnant because I get so bloated with it. Thankfully, I don't have because it can affect your sort of periods. It can make them really, really heavy and painful.
Right.
But my medication I'm on doesn't let me have a period, basically.
Right. Okay.
It
It sounds really tough.
It is,
honestly.
Yeah.
do you and like, do you become kind of more resilient to it over time, or actually is it just still as painful today as it was, you know, whenever it started to appear for you?
Yeah. It depends
Depends on
because
the day,
there's sort of triggers as well. So if you're stressed, you're going to feel pain even more.
Got it. Yeah.
So yeah, it varies.
It varies. It's not a simple answer.
No.
So I have, and what I thought of, and I don't think it's linked, but I'll explore it anyway. So I have asthma, and I'm more prone to chest infections. In fact, before we came on, I'm still carrying one from before Christmas. But again, a symptom of my asthma is that I need help to clear infections away. That's all. Whereas the regular folk out there that don't can clear them out quite easily. So part of my challenge around asthma, and again, everything's different, is that my body does an over-response. So it kind of closes up airways and thinks things that are harmless are bad and all of that sort of stuff. Is there anything linked to that kind of immune response in terms of the tissue growth, or is it just a completely separate thing?
I'm not entirely sure, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I know that the experts in the field are not 100% sure what causes it, how it grows. There's still a lot of research to be carried out into it.
There has to be more research done, right? Because, 8.5 years, I think, is the average diagnosis time, which is just, I still can't get my head around that. 8.5 years to diagnose somebody with something. Yeah. So it either tells me, well, there's kind of nefarious challenges going on, right, which we alluded to earlier on, or that we don't understand enough about it in order to deal with it in a competent manner. Excuse me, but clearly things need to change, right? So on that note, then, raising awareness is part of making that change and bringing it to the fore of people's conversations. Talk to us about, you're about to take an ambassador role at a charity. Yes. So talk to us about the charity, talk to us about the objectives and the work that they're doing out in the community.
Okay, so the charity I'm an ambassador for is Endo SOS. The SOS stands for South of Scotland.
Okay, so it's Scotland specific, right? South of Scotland specific. Okay,
yep. And it's the only registered charity in Scotland, and it provides for endo, and it provides support for people with it, as well as their families. So there's two different sort of Facebook pages. One is the support group, and the other is the sort of the support group for friends, relatives.
And that's such an important point, the friends and relatives, because again, if you're affected by poor health, it's not just you, is it?
No.
It's everyone around you. It's those you love. It's your friends. It's your colleagues. If you're going through something, you're not operating at your best. You can't operate your best. Yeah. And when you were talking earlier on about, the pain daily, I can't help think that, I know my wife takes the mickey out of me all the time. If I have any kind of pain, and I've got a low pain threshold, I know that, right? But any kind of pain, and you might as well not come near me. Because I cannot cope just with a low level of pain. So I know how it affects my mental state and my mindset. So if you're going through pain and for me, things like pain are like, toothache, right? And in a week or so, you can get that fixed, right? Or even days. Yeah. So this is what I think really shocked me when I was doing the research is it's a condition that's lifelong, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's lifelong. There's no cure, only treatment. And even then, sometimes the treatment doesn't always work. So it's sort of trial and error with various different hormone treatments. Are
there kind of natural things that you can do to offset anything, or is it literally just medication and hormones and?
Natural things, I don't know.
Yeah. But sometimes funny, weird things work for people.
Yeah, they do.
Like drinking lots of water or going for a run, or but I guess different strokes for different folks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So sorry, back to the charity.
It's fine.
I took you off course. Yeah.
Yes, the charity is there's three. I think there's a few ambassadors, and we've got two famous-ish ones.
Oh.
Yeah, two celebrity ones who are...
You're checking now, aren't you?
Checking, make sure I get the names
right. Yeah.
We have Isla Short and Jessica Knappett. Okay. So, if memory serves me right, Isla Short is a cyclist.
Okay.
And Jessica Knappett is she's been in things like In-Betweeners, and she's a comedian, actress.
Right. Okay. So they're both out there kind of championing the cause as well.
Yes.
And I'm guessing both have been, diagnosed and
I don't think so. I think one has,
Right, okay.
but the other one has friends who have endo.
And we were having that conversation, weren't we? It's almost like the human condition where if you're not affected by something, you kind of care less about it.
Yeah.
But if something touches you, and it doesn't need to touch you directly, it can touch a friend or a loved one.
Yeah.
And then now you're invested, now you care about the outcomes, now you're interested. So that's phenomenal. So talk to us about the charity's work then, and what it's doing. Does it get out into the community? Does it have community come to them?
So at the moment, they run face-to-face support groups in the borders.
Okay, yep.
Because that's where it started off as Endo Borders.
Okay.
So the founder is a lovely lady called Theo McCready.
Okay.
So they have face-to-face in borders. I am looking at running face-to-face sessions on the East Lothian side of, on the border.
Yes, yep.
And hopefully interactive online sessions.
And this is just for people to reach out and just kind of get a bit of support from friendly people who understand. This is the key, isn't it? Who understand what they're going through, right?
Yeah, definitely. Also, I should mention that Theo is the patient representative for Expect, which is the endometriosis and pelvic pain sort of specialist team at the Edinburgh University.
Oh, at the university. I saw a partnership with the university. Okay. So they're doing specific research on the condition and how is it, identification of it, is it treatment of it, or everything, I guess, right?
Everything, yeah. So some of the medical experts on that team are also involved with the charity.
Yeah.
And they run online webinars every now and then through the charity for people to attend to find out more. So it's all around sort of support, raising awareness. In East Lothian, because I'm the ambassador there, I've just started, so my aim is to focus around sort of teenagers.
Nice.
Because
early intervention.
Yes.
Early intervention. Yeah.
And to encourage them, if there's no such thing as an agonising period.
Yeah.
And I know that from personal experience, when I was a teenager, it was horrendous. If I had known then what I know now, I wouldn't have been fobbed off.
You felt like you just had to get on with it because of what people were telling you, basically.
Yeah, tell me that it was normal, it's IBS, you'll be fine. And I think it's known as medical gaslighting.
Makes sense.
Which it still happens now because there's so little. The experts are still looking into it and carrying research out. A GP doesn't have that expertise of it, so they don't really know a lot, or they know less than the experts.
The similarities here, again, you understood started because we were passionate about actually each one of us being our own best expert, and we know ourselves better than any medical profession can, and that's not a disservice to the medical profession in any way, shape or form, but we know when something isn't right. Better than anyone else can know it. So I love the fact that you're focusing in that area and almost empowering and enabling younger girls to talk and express freely how they're experiencing those things, because it frees them from that burden of stigma, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And gives them that voice. I think, which is really important. So questions in terms of the charity. Do you know how it's funded? Is it publicly funded? Is it privately funded?
I've just received funding from Scottish Government.
Great, perfect.
Which
that's something.
Helps.
Yeah, that's good. It all helps. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And donations. I am running an ultra marathon in March to raise funds as well. I still need to set my Just Giving page up. Yeah, so stuff like that, and just sort of keeping eyes peeled for funding opportunities. But they have just received funding from the government to help. So, yeah.
Good. Are you excited about it?
I am.
It's a new role.
Yes.
And have you got any, have you set yourself any targets, or are you just going to go out there and just do good wherever you can do good, basically?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about the relationship between then the physical health and the mental health. So I noticed on the endometriosis website that one of the symptoms was depression.
Yeah.
And talk to us about that particular symptom as it relates to mental health, and how endometriosis fed into that depression specifically. So were the two intrinsically linked, locked together, or was there just a cause and effect type relationship, if that makes sense?
For me, it was a cause and effect type relationship.
Right.
So because I had been in pain for so many years, then diagnosed, I thought, great, somebody's doing something about this. I'm going to know what's wrong. I found out what was wrong. I didn't know what endometriosis was. And the way I was diagnosed was through keyhole surgery.
Right.
And they found out there was actually too much of the disease there to remove it there and then. So I went on another waiting list for a 5-hour surgery to have it all removed. But it grows back.
It grows back.
It's a gift that keeps on giving. It grows back.
It's good. It's good that we can have a laugh.
I know. I have to.
Yeah.
So, where was I?
So the keyhole surgery, the link, the link in terms of how that affected your mental health. Yeah. So
I was diagnosed, and then I was like, actually, what is endometriosis? I'd never heard of it before. I remember coming around from the anaesthetic and them telling me, you're going to have to come back so we can remove this. I went home. I actually remember texting my boss, and I was like, I found out what the pain is. I've got endometriosis. And I just remember sitting there, I was like, actually, what is this? And the more I read into it, the more I didn't like
what you were reading.
What I was reading.
So you went almost from kind of, not elation, that's the wrong word to use, but positivity around finally getting diagnosed, which, let's remind everyone, took 9 years to get there. So you feel like you've crossed the finish line, but then you go into a different kind of now, oh my goodness, now I'm understanding what it is, finding out what it is, right?
Yeah. So finding out what it was, finding out that there isn't a cure, and then this sort of realization that I could be having these symptoms for the rest of my life. So I didn't do much about it. I sort of wallowed for a bit.
I think that's fair, right? I think a lot of it, why wouldn't you? I think that's a natural reaction.
So after that, I went and got it all removed, ended up with quite significant nerve pain.
Right.
It was sort of it's all located on my right-hand side.
But directly due to the removal process?
Really don't know.
Don't know, okay.
There's a possibility it's growing around my sciatic nerve.
Got it.
Or they've damaged something when they've...
Yeah.
So then I got put into a chemically induced menopause.
Okay.
And prescribed painkillers. So that was another hurdle. I was 37 at the time. I'm 39 now. And I was, oh God, I'm in the menopause now. And then I started thinking, I'm going to turn into an old woman. That's the way I felt about it at the time. And I put on a bit of weight. That was one of the sort of side effects of it. It became so emotional. It was ridiculous. And I did go through a really low spell where I visited some very dark places. And I'm quite good at speaking to people about how I feel. So I spoke to my husband. I met my dad in a coffee shop, and I remember bawling, and I'm in the middle of this coffee shop, and I said, I have to do something about this.
Yeah.
So I went to the doctor, got prescribed antidepressants.
Right.
To add to my ever-growing medication list.
But just you reeling those things off that led to that prescription on the depression side. I'm listening to you as the first time I've heard those things,
yeah.
and all I can think of while you're talking about those things is it's basically like, you know, probably a terrible analogy, but it's a boxer who's getting continually hit. So the first hit really hurts.
Yeah.
The second hit really hurts, and then you think it's over. No, keeps coming.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised. I mean, it's a real, and I hope with reflection and time you get a chance to look at it like this if you haven't already. For you to be sat there having gone through all of that stuff is a real credit to yourself, like honestly, because not many people have to suffer one thing, two things sometimes, right? But to cope with all of those things in a wanna, right? It is a real credit to you, and you should take that, even if you know you don't want to or you haven't got there yet. I hope that comes if it hasn't already come, because that is just, I'm sitting here again and I'm in awe of the fact that you've endured that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so coping with all of that stuff at once for anyone, I think, is going to be a significant challenge. And then when you're continually hit with adversity, things can become bleak, can't they? Because your sense of hope and positivity and motivation kind of just degrades. So being able to try and focus on something and latch onto something becomes even more important. Yeah. Just again, for those who might be experiencing similar, not necessarily linked to endometriosis, but similar kind of hits like bereavement or relationship breakdowns or loss of jobs or financial circumstances, these things often come at once, and depression is a symptom of those things. So talk to us about how you coped beyond the medication and things I guess you self-discovered and self-learned from it, because again a listener may cling on to something and it will give them some hope. The
way I've sort of dealt with it is, as I've mentioned already, I am very open. I will speak to anybody about it in the hope that my experience can help others. I have incorporated my own coping mechanisms. Great. So I do a lot of cold water swimming, and I've taken up trail running, which the swimming helps. The swimming is amazing, and it's one of my most favourite things to do.
Do you do it in the sea?
Yes, safely.
Yeah.
I don't go out my depth.
No.
But even 5 minutes in the icy cold sea is enough to make you feel amazing.
My wife is a big fan. She's only done it a few times and she wants to do it more, but she can't speak highly enough of it.
Oh, it's amazing.
I'm too scared. I'm too scared to go into the cold water.
I used to be too scared, but see, once you've been in the first time, you'll be hooked.
Really?
Yeah.
But so does it get easier then each time? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just take no pun intended, but take the plunge and literally just and what is it? Gradual getting in? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't just throw yourself in, right?
No.
Okay.
No. So you want to go in slowly and control your breathing, because otherwise you'll go into cold water shock.
And do you do it with a group, or do you do it on your own, or?
I do it my own. Sometimes I've got a friend that will come with me.
Nice.
If I go in on my own, I make sure that my husband or my daughter is standing
close
watching.
By, just in case, absolutely, yeah.
But it's great. Absolutely love it.
So you can't. So from a coping mechanism perspective, that's a real lifter.
Definitely.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And the running.
Yeah.
When did I start running properly? probably, it was actually last January, I signed up for monthly running challenges.
Nice.
Because I thought I find if I'm doing, I'm not feeling.
Makes sense, yeah. Your kind of brain gets distracted, doesn't it? Because you're actually doing something, yeah. And were you a runner before? Sorry, Alannah, were you a runner before?
A wee bit.
Okay. Just dabbled.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
But now I'm running about 20-25 miles a week.
Wow.
Sometimes it does get emotional sometimes because of the pains I get in my legs.
Does running make it worse, or is it just it would happen anyway regardless of whether you're running?
It just depends what the body wants to do.
Okay, so you're not in control of it, basically.
No. So I was out for a run last week with my husband, and I had to stop after 3 miles because I couldn't physically go anymore.
Wow. So it's chronic pain.
Yeah. It gets to the point where I can't lift my leg.
Yeah.
I can't go uphill. Sometimes if it's not that bad, I'll run through it and I'll update my Strava.
Oh, you're a Strava.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, it is serious. It is serious.
And I'll put my little comment on there, FU Endo with the wee middle finger emoji.
Oh, brilliant.
Because I don't want to let it get in the way or control everything I do.
Yeah.
It's a big part of my life, and because it's unfortunately part of me, but running helps just in nature.
In nature, yeah. And there's similarities, right? Being out in nature, trail running, doing runs, but also the cold water, swimming in the sea is phenomenal. It really distracts and it gives you a sense of connection, I think, with the things that matter in life. So beyond getting out in nature, how do you get on the front foot with how do you keep yourself positive and able to cope? And of course, some days you'll go into that bleak mode again, right? Where it's like, this is just terrible and awful. And in those situations, I guess there's a tendency or a risk of catastrophizing and forgetting that you actually do have good days. But when they are bleak, I mean, there's no getting around the fact that they are bleak, right? That's authentic. So, is there anything else that's like, does socializing help? Does reading help? Does, and being part of the charity as an example, and surrounded by people who who know what it's all about, that must help, and that must uplift significantly.
Definitely. If I'm having a bad day, I do tend to go in the support group and just have a moan. Ask, has anyone experienced this before? Yesterday, for example, I was having a bad day. And I just felt fed up, fed up being in pain and everything like that. And I actually spoke to somebody in the group about social media posts, and I was like, fed up, I've got this pain in my leg and everything like that. And she was like, what leg is it? And I was like, it's my right leg. And she went, oh, well, do you know, and she had exactly the same thing. So I was like, oh, what a relief. It's not just me.
No.
So she in turn said, gave me a list of things, speak to the doctor about this, ask them to do that.
See, this is key, isn't it? Because like other people will have taken different routes.
Yeah.
Still similarities in terms of sharing the condition and the some of the symptoms. Some of them will be the same, some of them will be different, but you can learn a lot from other people's journeys, both the good and the bad. And I think that's enormously powerful, isn't it? Which I guess is why the support groups are important, right?
Definitely.
And the early intervention's important.
Definitely.
So that helps as well.
Oh yes, because sometimes it'll be the same with anything, if you've got friends who don't have any sort of first-hand experience of the condition, you can talk to them, they'll be supportive, but
It's not the same.
It's not. They
No.
can't offer the same sort of advice as somebody who is in the same shoes.
Yeah.
Even though, I greatly appreciate my friends.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So,
You
yeah.
can't understand anything truly. It's like being in the person's shoes, isn't it? Unless you're in there, you can't appreciate it. It's not their fault, right?
No.
But it's hard, and it is frustrating when you're going through something that nobody else can understand truly.
Yeah.
It is frustrating. There's no getting away from that. Do you or have you carried kind of anger as a result of that frustration, or are you pretty good at trying to contextualize it all?
See, I find it hard to get
Oh, really?
angry. I do. I really struggle being angry
that's
about
a positive
stuff,
though,
but,
I think.
Yeah.
Just more frustration, really.
It is frustrating, yeah. I sort of maybe sometimes feel a bit hopeless, but yeah, I don't think I've been angry about it. I get angry when it stops me from running, actually. Oh, I do. I do.
It gets in the way of training.
Yes.
It gets in the way of training.
Because I was running in the Lammermuir Hills with my husband a few months ago, and got to the top of the hill, or I wasn't even at the top, I was halfway to the top of the hill. I was like, I can't go anymore, it's too sore.
Yeah.
So I had a bit of a paddy, a tantrum.
Good for you.
So
did you throw anything, or was it just vocal?
It was vocal, and maybe it was anger, actually. I was so annoyed.
And the good thing about the Lammermuirs is go for your life, because you're not going to get hurt up there, are you?
I know.
So it's a good place to do it.
Yeah.
In terms of the way life is for you, then, are you able to achieve a decent enough balance at the moment between everything, or and you just accept and know, unfortunately, that endo will appear at some points and you'll just have to deal with it when it comes up, but almost knowing that it gives you the power, if that makes sense. You're not surprised by it,
no,
so it kind of gives you the advantage again, even though it's an absolute pain in the neck. Well, not in the neck, well, maybe in the neck specifically, but so that's something, isn't it? But I mean, and that's a pertinent question that I'm curious about. Now that you've got the diagnosis, despite the challenges being ongoing, and there's not really a lot that can be done at the moment. Hopefully that changes, right, in the future, and that's something, that hope will always be consistent, I think. But at least So what experience? This sounds a terrible question, but I'm going to ask it. What experience would you take if you were offered the choice? Is it the kind of before, without the diagnosis, or kind of the after with the diagnosis and the knowing?
Probably with the diagnosis, because I know that there's things that I can do. I know I know what to expect. I know what's causing the pain.
Yeah.
Because before at the diagnosis, and I was having this pain and all these symptoms, and I was like, oh my, have I got cancer?
Yeah, it could be anything. You're like worry, right? It's the worry of it.
Yeah. So yeah, I would probably go for, with diagnosis, I know what it is. Mind's at rest, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Amazing. So, okay. So in terms of the trail run in the environment, do you see yourself kind of doing more of that then as a result of the positive benefits it gives you?
Yeah. Yes.
And is that just enjoying it for what it is, or are you going to set yourself any kind of targets and goals? Because I heard you say ultramarathon.
Yeah, I'm doing a 30 mile in March, and then I'm doing a relay ultramarathon in April with my friend. But I'm not going to be doing stupid distances.
No, but people will be listening to this and laughing because for them 30 miles is a stupid distance.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's all relative. They'll be saying, what are you talking about? 30 miles? You're off your rocker. So the fact that you're doing that sort of stuff, that's a lot of miles.
Yeah.
That's a lot of miles.
The beauty with trail running, though, is you can walk when you get a bit too tired and then start running again. It's not like road running where you're constantly running and having to get the speed in. And I'm a slow runner. I'm a plodder.
That's good. And again, it's whatever works for you.
Yeah.
So one of the things we must end with then, and we always ask, is just general life's ups and downs, and based on your own experience, what would be your kind of strongest bits of advice for anyone that faces kind of any adversity? Is it to just be out in nature? Is it to surround yourselves with people who can truly empathize with what you're going through? I mean, just if, as a parting shot, give the listeners some advice on what you would suggest to somebody just in terms of coping day to day.
I would say do what makes you happy.
Love that.
Because we don't all like people. We might, there's people out there who don't have anybody, who either prefer solitude or genuinely just don't have anybody in the same sort of situation that they can talk to.
Yeah.
But yeah, do what makes you happy.
And do you think, and I was going to end it there, but give me another question now, sorry. So is that probably one of the biggest challenges for the majority of people, is not doing what makes you happy? Because for me, that's probably easier. It's not easy, but it's easier than actually understanding what makes you happy.
Now you're getting cryptic.
Maybe we should leave that. That's a different podcast, I think. But Alannah, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for raising awareness of endometriosis. I'm assuming anyone who wants to have more information about the charity, about support that's available, about the condition, you're happy for us to point them in your direction.
Yeah, of course.
And let me have that FU Endo thing. I'll mention that in all of our socials, because I think that's important. The fact that you're enduring and putting up with it. It sounds absolutely horrible, and I said it during the podcast, but I mean it. Thank you so much. You're an absolute inspiration, and
thank you.
Wonderful to have you as a guest.
Thank you. Lovely to have been here.
All right, thanks.